calls changing the subject while the whole world has been laughing about him because we now know that his nickname is Thumbelina and he literally is 3 inches long, right? Diddy is going after his male accuser, Little Rod. Little Rod was the first man to bring a huge lawsuit against Diddy, but now he's demanding to see Little Rod's medical records. Sir, sir. Now listen, one thing Diddy got, he got audacity, and two, he got minions. Okay, I listen because I don't see where Diddy's going with this, but let's read this article in real time to find out. Here's the article. Diddy the male accuser. I'm not talking about Cuba Gooding. Turn over your medical records. Way to change the topic, Diddy. Everybody forgot that clearly Thumbelina, we now see his motivation and now everything he's ever done in his life makes sense. The only thing I'm wondering is, were all his children conceived naturally? I'm being serious. Anyway, they said Diddy claims music producer Rodney Little Rod Jones, who's suing him for SA, has failed to turn over his medical records. TMZ has learned. Now, has Diddy turned over his medical records to anyone or anything? Because there are questions. There is confusion. Anyway, according to court docs, and the reason I say that, hold on, I'm about to get back to the article, but come here. So the reason I say that is, and let's be real, Diddy admitted in court that he's been high for at least a decade of his life, every day, high, a drug addict. Even his kids were like, thank you for putting my dad in jail. You showed a different side of him. I said, you mean sober? Anyway, right? So Diddy had been doing that for about like at least a decade and a half. He might have even said 20 or 25 years, but let's just say it's 15. We'll call it even. Anyway, come here. The thing about this is, if you've been high for that long and you've been having freak offs and you've been doing this and you've been doing that, what's your medical records look like? Now, I'm not saying that Diddy got houses in Virginia. I'm not saying he got bodies in DC, right? What I am saying is, out of anybody and their medical records, and I just know that rug addicts are not known for their sexual hygiene. That's all I'm saying. Okay, fine. I'll move on. Okay. According to court docs obtained by TMZ. So basically, Tinny Garrigos handed it to her daddy, Mark, and then Mark gave it to TMZ. Okay. Diddy says he shouldn't have to produce a bunch of documents and ask questions for Rodney Jones. Let me stop calling him Little Rod. He a grown man. Describing his request for discovery as abusive and improper. Diddy says Rodney was supposed to sign off on a release to provide access to his medical records back in November, but the release provided was not in compliance with regulations related to the privacy of such records. What? Rodney was supposed to sign off. Okay, so this is TMZ using their witchcraft to make Diddy seem like the video. Let's read this over again. Rodney was supposed to sign off on the release and provide access to his medical records back in November. But the release provided was not in compliance with regulations related to the privacy of such records. So let me get this straight. Diddy hasn't produced nothing. They asked for Little Rod's medical records. Probably the release said, we can go back to everything. We can talk to your. Probably the release was basically like, and sign your soul. And it was probably over expansive. Little Rod came back and said, you can see my medical records as it relates to this, but all the other stuff, no. So as true with Diddy, you ain't doing nothing and you're demanding everything. In the filing, Diddy says Rodney is asking him to answer questions about Cuba Gooding Jr., who Rodney claimed was involved in one of the assaults on Rodney aboard Diddy's yacht. They go on to say Diddy's team says seeking information about the alleged conduct or statements of third parties like Cuba is improper. But you want this man's medical records? Let me also just say this, and I think it's very, very funny. I'm not saying that Cuba Gooding Jr. also might be getting high on his own supply. I'm not. I wouldn't ever suggest that. Saying that we've all seen pictures of Cuba Gooding Jr. coming out from the nightclub looking like Mr. Burns on the episode of The Simpsons when he got radioactive, looking happy, sad, frightened, scared, and amused, and happy, and surprised all at the same time. So I'm not saying that he also is a disciple of I haven't been clean in over a decade and a half. But if we did find that out about Cuba Gooding Jr., I wouldn't be surprised. Which brings me to my point. If Diddy is admitting that he was so out of his mind all those years, he didn't know he hurt women, broke up families, did this, did that. I didn't know I was Dracula. I just woke up with blood on my face every morning. If he's doing that, then it makes me wonder. Um, okay, but how can we take your word you didn't do it? You see what I'm saying? Like some of the most horrific stuff happened on screen, and you were like, "What?" Oh my God, who is that? Boy, you see that 3 inch wiggling? Well, does it even wiggle? You see that 3 inch shift to the side? That's probably. Let me stop. We saw it on the camera. You know who that is, but he's just like, oh my God, I'm not that person anymore. I don't even remember. Did he shut up? Anyway, so how can we trust anybody's word for it? Again, ask somebody that's been on drugs and gotten clean. Do you remember yourself at the worst? Anyway, they said as TMZ first reported, Diddy denied all allegations of wrongdoing in the case. He claimed the suit was a money grab. Is that not the same thing he said about Cassie before we saw him in the hotel and him put 20 million out of his pocket? Did he not also say it was a complete money grab and fabricated? No, I'm not saying that Diddy's lying. I'm saying before he was being at best until he's dishonest, and at worst he was lying through his teeth. Anyway, you know what they say? That's a wives' tale that if you lie, your nose will grow. But I have heard that if you lie, your maybe Diddy's ready. Maybe that's why Diddy said, "I'm finally clean." He said he only had 3 inches left. How many more centimeters can you take off? Anyway, they said, um, in the suit, little Rodney claimed Diddy groped him, touched him, did all this stuff. Diddy often walked around naked when he was around. Sounds like a crackhead. Well, I don't know if it was crack, but it sounds like a drug head. And Diddy admitted he was one, so it checks out. And tried to get him to have sex with him. That also seems to check out from what we've heard. Anyway, he also claimed he was rugged and raped at Diddy's home. I mean, is anything mentioning that doesn't sound like the accusations that have been leveled at Diddy by numerous people? Um, They said he's seeking 30 million in damages. You know the messed up thing about this is I don't know how much Little Rod wanted for his 2 years of work on the Love album, but it cost him about 100. Let's just say it was under $100,000. Diddy was a billionaire. He could have actually, if that man wanted 100,000, that would have been 50,000 a year, which is really underpayment for a musician of Little Rod's level. By the way, I did an interview with Little Rod. Make sure you check that out on my channel. It was like very like whatever. And the fact that he didn't pay that money, and from that, all this stuff happened. Diddy's cheapness, man, it's anyway. Maybe it's from a position of lack, like you feel the Lord has given you so little that no matter how much money is your bank account, okay, fine, I'll stop. I'll stop anyway. Listen, Diddy's attorney said Little Rod is nothing more than a liar who filed a $30 million lawsuit shamelessly looking for undeserved payday. His reckless name dropping about events that are pure fiction and simply did not happen is nothing more than a transparent attempt to garner headlines. Again, sure, I guess, but Diddy said that about a lot of things, including Cassie, and he's been proven to be a liar about a lot of things. At this point, who do you believe? I know the Didiots are going to believe Diddy. I actually believe Little Rod. And even if his name was, I'm sorry, Rodney Jones, even if his name was someone else, even if it was someone else, after the way Diddy got exposed to that trial, man, y'all can believe the devil when he whispers in your ear or not. Anyway, y'all, listen, at the end of the day, Diddy, where's all the stuff that Little Rod's asking for? You want his medical records. Fool, where is your medical records? Honestly, probably scared. Because honestly, when's the last time Diddy been to the doctor? Anyway, y'all, let me know what you think in the comments. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.